Hello, everyone, and welcome to the April Fool's press conference. It is April 1st, 2021, and we're going to jump right in with the topic of the Chrysalis Calendar. I'll give a brief introduction, but seriously, I invite all of us to jump in and contribute to this introduction as well as the entire conversation. I don't like to hog the talking feather, so help me out here and relieve me of it. And Malini, yes, go for it, Malini.
Yeah, just give me a minute. Okay, great. Hello, everybody, and I would like to really actually butt in to Jamin's introduction, go back a bit in time. I think the Chrysalis Calendar is the natural, obvious, organic, evolutionary development from the concept of bringing people together in conversations. So while Jamin started the platform to bring people together, I think this is the most needed step to actually put pins on that board, on that wall board, to sort of help people get in touch and identify who's talking to whom, when, where, and how, and on what. And thank you so much for taking this forward and not just leaving it at talk and conversation and getting to do something. I am always there when there's something to do, and I'm not there when there's talk. Jamin knows that. And I don't do to-do lists. I only do done lists. So let's get this done. So back to you, Jamin.
Malini, sister, thank you so much. Oh my goodness. I love your words and I love your just chiming in. That's what I'm talking about. So when you're inspired, please chime in. And Malini, I want to acknowledge you. You have a beautiful, loving heart, and you are a force of nature. You bring so many people together. You've brought so many people together. You continue to do so. Everyone who knows you, loves you, and trusts you, and loves being in your presence. And I'm so grateful you're here. So thank you so much. All right. And everyone, feel free to keep chiming in. And indeed, Malini, I love what you're saying because pre-COVID, okay, we've been having these Zoom meetings for literally years. And at first there were, years ago, there was tremendous frustration because it seemed like there was barely anyone in the conversation about the urgent solutions that we need to develop and implement to save, heal, and transform life on Earth. It was like the whole world was asleep. And then along comes COVID and shakes us awake. And all over the world, all these meetings start popping up and people are talking about change and transformation, global transformation, radical solutions, and really addressing these problems, which are just exponentiating, like exponential climate change, the spread of COVID. I could go on and on and on, the sixth mass extinction, destruction of the biosphere, et cetera, et cetera. And now we're at a state where, yes, there's lots and lots of conversations happening, but we're all fragmented. And we're fragmented for many reasons, not the least of which is the mode of production of our global economy. And you might think, well, what does the economy have to do with these conversations? We're not here for money. We're here to develop solutions. But the thing is, like a bunch of trained seals, we're trained to jump for the brass ring of ownership. As Daniel Pinchbeck says, we're in a possession trance. And that extends far beyond just possessing the material and money and land and animals and even other people, et cetera, and things of all kinds. We are trained to possess credit, to take ownership, and to each own our own space and say, yes, this is my fiefdom, and I am the one who created this, and I get credit for this and all that. Even if we don't say that, and even if we don't think it, see, some of the most dangerous things are the invisible things. So even though we may not think that, oh, I'm here to take credit and I'm here to do this, a trained SEAL probably doesn't think, well, you know, I'm here to catch the brass ring and therefore get the treats and all that. It's just, it becomes an ingrained habit. And anyway, we've seen so many forms of this divisiveness. And so what we've done and what we are doing, to put a bigger context to it, is creating mechanisms to bring people together where they don't feel like they're having to sacrifice anything, but to the contrary, they're actually gaining benefit and making new connections. So what we're not saying is, hey, everybody, you know, tear down and destroy what you've built in your own little fiefdom. No. Bring your fiefdom and make more connections. And if more people show up at your fiefdom, great, you know. But let's together bring our communities, our groups, our meetings into a network where the whole is much, much greater than the sum of its parts. Because right now, what do we got? We've got a whole big sum of a whole bunch of parts. And the parts are very, very separate, right? And, you know, I'm program chair for the East Bay Sierra Club dinners down in the San Francisco Bay Area, a role I inherited from my father, and who was a great community builder there in the San Francisco Bay Area. And at one of our dinners, you know, we're talking about all this after dinner and these big after dinner discussions that we would have. And this professor of sociology said, this was a few years ago, he said, you know, if you look at all the nonprofits in the world, there's over 1 million nonprofit organizations with a combined membership of over 1 billion people. If you add it all up, we constitute a superpower, but we constitute the most dysfunctional superpower precisely because we're so fragmented. Now that was pre-COVID. But in COVID times, it's the same pattern. If anything, there's more of us. You know, instead of nonprofit organizations, you've just got Zoom groups here, there, and everywhere, and people getting together and talking. But we're so fragmented. And so there's this golden opportunity for all of us to come together. Now, the thing is, previous attempts to kind of bring us all together have basically constituted, hey, we're creating this new social network. Everyone come here, right? And other people resist that and say, wait a second, you're just trying to take all of my members and get them into your group, and it's me versus you, and it's almost like a battle for survival. Survival of what? Survival of the ego, survival of who gets credit. So our first big innovation, and Malini and I worked closely on this as well as many other folks in this room and beyond, to create a press conference, an ongoing press conference, which is where we're meeting right now, the Thursday press conference, to basically say, look, we're not trying to create a new social network or anything like that. We're trying to give voice to you and your network and your group, your community, whatever it is you're trying to promote, we want to help you promote it. And of course, that message was very well received. So you see, it's a way of striking a balance of not, you know, anyway, I think I'm getting a bit too loquacious here, but we went ahead and organized the press conference, and many dozens of people showed up, close to 70 or something like that, 75. And we had a full day where they were supposed to present for like 2 minutes each. I think it's more realistic to make it 5 minutes each. But anyway, it wasn't perfect, and a lot of people took a lot longer, and that was okay. And we just kind of rolled with it. But the idea was present your idea and then invite people to a recurring conversation, and anyone who's interested can come to your conversation. So it's a way to both maintain this, not fragmentation, but diversity of conversations and diversity of topics and areas of focus and perspectives and all that, but at the same time, bring us all together in this press conference. And very quickly, we found that what was missing was a calendar. So we did some kind of immediate working on that. How do we get this together? And then I got super busy bringing with some big family changes, bringing my mother-in-law to move in with us, which has been wonderful, but so much work. And so anyway, the bottom line is it's taken us essentially until now. to figure this out. Now, at first, we were focused on, okay, how do we get a calendar that basically goes with the press conference? But in a way, it's kind of good that we've taken our time, because we've been able to have these much more broad conversations about, wait a second, we don't just need a calendar to go with the press conference. We need a universal calendar that spans far beyond even the people who've even heard about the press conference. We need a universal calendar for global transformation and change making. And if I had to give a single focus to it, if it were up to me, which thankfully it's not, I would give it the focus of saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth, right? I mean, what's the point of global transformation, right? To make the rich richer? No, that's just been happening as a matter of course. We've gotten on the wrong course. We need to get off to a much better course. And pretty much everyone agrees with this. They articulate it in slightly different ways or in very different ways. But the opportunity is to create a planetary scale, what I refer to as a universal calendar, for putting on the map, as Malini says, putting the thumbtacks on the board. Malini says a universal calendar for global transformation. That's a good name for it. Yeah, so that's the concept. And then the name we came up with literally last week. I can't believe it's been just like 8 days ago that we came up with the name. It was Simon who came up with the name, building off of Silas's beating the drum of the chrysalis, the chrysalis, the chrysalis, from caterpillar to butterfly. And so it just sort of popped out, the Chrysalis Calendar. Why not? So, but the concept is exactly as Malini wrote in the chat, a universal calendar for global transformation. That's it. And so we've gotten a lot of positive feedback. So now we're at a point where we can basically say, okay, let's spec it out. Let's figure out what we want, what exactly we want to create here. And then let's get the folks together who can actually build it. Folks like Jason, for example, who Rebecca mentioned. I've also been working with, had some great conversations with Vincent Arena, who's extremely strong technically, also very busy. Simon's got some folks he's connected with who can potentially help build it. We have the funding we need to do this. We just need to get the developers together and tell them what we want, and then they can build it. We have the domain names, we have everything. Domain name chrysaliscalendar.org, I think, is a good starting point. So let's start there. And so I want to jump in and talk about specifications, but first, is there anything anyone would like to add or ask about this broader context and where we're coming from here? And this idea of, yes, let millions of flowers bloom, all these different conversations and projects and initiatives, but let's just let them see each other so that people can find out about different projects, cross-pollinate, talk with each other. And when valuable, we can bring together different groups and say, hey, look, there's all these different groups talking about the same thing, whether it's permaculture or solar radiation management or whatever the project may be, or a spiritual transformation or whatever it may be. Let's get together and have a summit or a bigger meeting or whatever, you see. So it's about how do we go from a giant set of conversations that are fragmented to a network of conversations that are connected. So it's all about the connective tissue between these conversations, right? And what can arise from all these connections.
Yes, I first want to say thank you for all your good work, and thanks for all those people that are jumping in and saying, I can do this, I can do that, and I can help, because that's the way things really happen. Thank you for, taking your time to do all this. So important to everyone. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sister Ivy, and thank you for being a part of it. It would not be the same without you. And you have provided so much inspiration through the work you're doing with We Are Uno, that in fact, from my perspective, if there was one physical project that came out of this and it was really promoted out of this, the first most urgent one would be the one you're doing, We Are Uno, which of course we are doing together. And in 5 hours and 40 minutes at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, we'll be meeting here on We Are Uno, right here in this room. That's on the agenda as I sent out via email. All right, great, thank you. More thoughts, more perspective before we get into, shall we say, the brass tacks of specifying all this and exactly how we want this to look and operate.
It's happening, isn't it, Jamin? To the extent you're talking about what you want it to look like, the structure of it. But in the meantime, the Chrysalis Calendar is ICIC, all these other things. You're starting getting people to turn up and populating the Zoom, which is like a real-time calendar, really. You've got the fact that Eric's committed to this glass bead game in an hour's time every week. The community conversation he had today was interesting because you had a bunch of predominantly people in the UK using your space, so they were using your calendar. They didn't even really realize where they were. But they were talking about a specific intentional community. May or may not happen. If it does, the majority of the people on the call won't end up living there. But they're, like Alan was saying with the Russell Brand thing and the 400 people turning up, there's a real movement towards intentional communities, eco-communities. So it would make perfect sense to reach out to those people who are there today, and I suggested it, and allocate some space for a regular meeting. And it's not at all inconceivable that there are people on that call that would make a commitment to be here at a particular time every week to help Marco, to help Alan, help Christopher, help you. I think that's a really good place to start, to get these people here. So whenever anybody turns up, someone is here. And basically just put the calendar up and mark the spaces which aren't occupied and say, you know, this is our first goal, to fill this calendar. So there's, you know, people will say, oh, I really want to have a meeting. Oh, there's nothing left. I mean, almost a sense of urgency because the spaces are being filled. I think that would be a good start. And as far as the Chrysalis is concerned, I've used your terminology with various people over the few weeks since I've met you. ICIC, Universal Calendar, various other things, press room, shit. This is the first one that is received almost like universal enthusiasm. Everybody seems to get it. You know, this metaphor of this space that we want to invite people into, where the transformation takes place between the old and the new. It is what it is. It's a really, really strong, I hate to say it, but a marketing brand. It's something we can all get behind, I think. Well, not everybody, but nearly everybody. So, yeah. In fact, I might just add, I wasn't going to say this, but I'm seriously contemplating dropping Just Cooperate in favor of the prospect of Chrysalis communities. Because I think that, and we could build a network of global Chrysalis communities. Places, because of the locality, within your community, you're part of this movement, again, from the old to the new, but it's not just where you live, you're part of a global movement to transition within your own Chrysalis. And the thing about Chrysalis, it's a fantastic thing, but Chrysalists are vulnerable. You know, there's nothing more vulnerable than a chrysalis that's just sat there to predators and people who want to attack it. So we really do need strength in numbers. And the prospect of a global network of chrysalists supporting, defending each other where necessary is important, I think. Just one last thing. You know, with the money-free party, that Eric and I believe that money is quite a destructive, toxic force. But as part of this transformation, trade, commerce does take place. I think one of the things that we should do collectively is to make a commitment to, wherever possible, trading with people inside the global chrysalis. So we only buy products and services from people who are part of this transition. That's enough in one go.
Beautiful, Simon. Beautiful. And looks like Karen wants to say something. I first want to welcome Sister Kate, who just arrived. Kate, my goodness, great to see you, sister. Hope all is well with you. Feel free to say hello whenever it's good. Sometimes Kate is driving, and so safety first. No need to unmute or anything. Safety, safety, safety first, especially for those who are driving. All right, if anything, whoa, looks like she's indoors, so that's a good sign. So welcome, Kate, and feel free to say hello. Meanwhile, Karen, go ahead.
I really enjoyed the last sentence Simon said about trading only with people in the group, because there's so much power in that. So yeah, I wanted to say that because it is a great incentive, I think. If you feel empowered through a transaction that doesn't involve money, and from then on, it triggers off your creativity about so much more than can be done, that can be done. It's like so many times you put your hand in your pocket and you say, I can't afford this, and I'm embarrassed to say I can't afford it, so I'll just move away. And I think in the trade situation, you even want to do extra to be able to trade fairly. So I wanted to say that.
Can I respond? There's a place that it's in the Bible. It's time to sow, a sign to reap, and all that. There's a time and a place. The problem with our monetized society, our monetized economy, there's no place for the gift economy. The only place it really exists now is within the family, really, where you do things for love and you don't expect anything in return. We need to rediscover that. I really feel that what Jamin has initiated here is we're almost like creating a parallel economy and giving people the choice. We're walking away. It's nothing competitive or combative about it or coercive. We're just saying, hey, we're doing something different. Join us if you like in this transition. Now, there will be no place within the chrysalis for corporations that are about extracting profit and externalizing costs. People who work for them, even the chief executive officer, they're welcome, but the corporations, no. And what they will do, they'll just wither. In much the same way that a caterpillar doesn't make it into the chrysalis, sometimes, not all of them, some of them just pass away, as is their time. And the last few hundred years has been the age of the corporations since the East India Company and all that, and how it's taken over the world. Basically, my attitude is that the caterpillar knows when it's time to enter the chrysalis. And global corporations it's their time to realize that their time has passed. Well, they won't realize it and they'll hang on for dear life. Yeah. But
exactly, they will.
It's our time to move on without them, because they've done far too much damage. Lots of good things that they do. Silas Rao talks about, you know, the caterpillar had its time and its place. He said on a call, really interesting last week, if we were all like enlightened Buddhas sat on the top of a hill somewhere with our legs crossed, we wouldn't have developed all the technology that we've got. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We want to harness all that we've developed scientifically in terms of the best of its application for the benefit of everybody.
Yes.
And again, take that into the chrysalis, but not take with it its voracious, blind, destructive aspect.
Exactly.
One last
Well
thing.
said, well said.
There is actually room for one last thing. That's something you might want to consider, Jamin. I think in terms of this parallel economy and trading within the chrysalis, we should have our own money, which I kind of think is kind of be called the chrysalis coin.
I like it. I like it. I love it. What we're doing is creating this whole chrysalis ecosystem, right? You can kind of imagine, and Karen is one of our artists here who does beautiful work. Imagine the whole world encased in a chrysalis, the whole planet, a big gooey chrysalis, which is not a bad metaphor, especially during times of pandemic, because suddenly we're all frozen. Before that, we're all like walking around doing this caterpillar Macarena dance and eat here and a chop down there and a set fire here and a destroy there and a press here. We're this big voracious caterpillar of a human society. And then COVID came along and it's just like freeze. And we're all kind of frozen. And in a way, dissolving much of the old economy, like the whole restaurant sector in many countries, just dissolving so many sectors. And so anyway, really good metaphors here. I'm going to keep passing the talking feather around. Much more to say. Let's pass it around. Jump in, anyone who wants to speak.
Well, if nobody else has anything to say at the moment, if I, you know, my Just Cooperate business, if I were to jettison that in favor of chrysalis communities within the UK, in my mind, a new website would have a members area, and the members area would give people, my members, through whatever I do in the UK, would be accessing this global village thing going on. Because I don't have that, this is mine, it has to work and I'm scared or fearful of what other people are doing because it might jeopardize what I'm doing. I'm enthusiastic at the prospect of linking, networking with like minds, kindred spirits, whatever they may be doing. That's my thoughts. I mean, you know, how are people going to access and become aware of this calendar? It needs to be exposed. It needs to be marketed again. You know, we can't get, there's nothing wrong about promoting something if it's done for a positive purpose. And I would dearly love to have a membership area that is in essence this chrysalis calendar, but more than that, you know, a real area for a global village of like minds.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, you know, the beautiful thing about the Chrysalis calendar is that anyone, well, first let me address the marketing of it, because I think it's just going to go exponentially. Once we've built it in the right way, and that's what we're going to be talking about over the next hour, then just like with the press conference, see, the marketing of the press conference was easy. Malini would call up a friend, for example, and say, hey, there's this press conference happening, and I think it's a great opportunity for you to present your project. And of course, anyone who wants to present anything to the world, what, a press conference? You're inviting me to a press conference to speak and present? I'm in. How much does it cost? $0, free. It's just a gift. I'm in. And people just signed up in relative droves, way more engagement with way more projects than I'd ever seen, right, in my years, and just so quickly. A similar opportunity is here with the Chrysalis Calendar, because basically we reach out to anyone who's doing anything transformational, anyone who's having a transformational conversation on any topic that is about change making, is about global transformation, is about collective intelligence, anything that's about the collective coming together and changing the world for the better. Whatever it is. Hey, how would you like to promote what you're doing on the Chrysalis Calendar? Well, I'd love to. How much does it cost? Nothing. It's free. Just come and present your stuff. Put it up on the calendar. And as we've been talking about before, there's really, really cool open source technical solutions. Simon, you actually know the guy who I was sharing out this video. Hey, we found out this great thing. It was Dot in the Netherlands who shared it with us here on one of these meetings end of last week, and said you should check this out. And it's a plugin so that let's say we find one of these transformational groups or communities that has a website, a WordPress website, and they're having meetings twice a week or something like that on whatever topics. All they'd have to do is install this plugin, and it would connect their website to our database, and therefore get it up on the Chrysalis Calendar, right? So there are ways to make it very, very easy, minimal work. And so basically our job is to just reach out to more and more of these folks who are leading these transformational conversations, and say, hey, we're creating a calendar for all such transformational conversations. Plug in, download and install the plugin on your WordPress site, and boom, all of your calendar events from there on out that you ever update will automatically, this is the key, get automatically updated to the Chrysalis Calendar. Now, once they figure that out and they're in, of course, they'll come and check out the Chrysalis Calendar and see what other transformational conversations are happening, because among many other reasons, that's the best, that's going to be a great place for them to recruit and promote what they're doing, as well as learn about what others are doing that they might want to participate in. So it's all about forming connections, right? I sometimes use this analogy that, like, imagine that this conversation that we're having right here, right now in this Zoom room is like a neuron, a single neuron. And we're firing away with all kinds of ideas and everything. Now imagine that all such conversations form like a neural network where the neurons can fire together and pass information and signals back and forth. That's what we're on the cusp of, a gigantic planetary distributed brain, a network of transformational conversations. Simon just put the link in to the technology project that I was talking about. And so we're literally on the cusp of a collective superintelligence with which we can use to design and develop and implement all kinds of projects and programs and solutions, from Chrysalis currency to We Are Uno, community cafes, solar radiation management, tree planting, cleaning up the oceans, cooperatives, sharing, tool libraries, toy libraries, book libraries, all kinds of stuff where we get away from this individual ownership and hoarding and more about sharing. I could go on, but I'm going to pass the talking feather before I go further into the functioning of this Chrysalis Calendar.
I was just going to say, Jamin, I could probably get Oliver along to one of these meetings to present Memorations, him or one of his team, because it's just gone live. They've been working on it for quite a while, but it's now available.
Well, I see this as kind of a killer app of their technology and a perfect example of their conversation. It's a conversation. Yes, there's people coding, but they're also talking and are connecting. Bzz. These are exactly the kinds of connections we're talking about. And these are the connections that the world is starving for.
Oliver initiated the first platform co-op convention in the UK, which was a follow-up to an American initiative by an American professor, Nathan Snyder. And platform co-ops was seen as an antidote to what are sometimes referred to as death style platforms like Uber and Airbnb. So just more examples of people trying to come up with alternatives to this extractive economy. But if you want me to reach out to him, I can do that for sure.
I would love that. Oh my goodness, because what a great application for their technology. What a great showcase for their technology, right? Because I mean, the universal calendar, it's just like, this is what everyone's waiting for without knowing it. And then when they hear about it, that's why people are so drawn to it. It's something that people aren't quite aware that they've always wanted. And now it's here, and you tell them about it and they come running. And Malini has her hand up. Go for it, Malini.
Yeah, I've seen the murmuration link in video that was in the TPS and Jamin's email, and then I went in and saw most of their demo videos. It's an awesome platform, but it's one of the awesome platforms that we would need. Jamin, you know, it's one of my hobbies to cyber surf and check out apps and platforms and stuff like that. There is the sutra.com, the sutra.co, which is another platform which is doing something different. What I can see is happening here is the concept is pretty clear. We know what we are looking for and the direction in which we are going. The technology is going to be a bit of a, we're going to need to shop around. When I mean shop around, I don't mean like buy for exchange of money, but basically to look for what's available. Maybe we would need to integrate more different versions of platforms. And in fact, in the murmuration, one of the videos, the webinars, they had a recent webinar which I plugged into, and WordPress, only 35% of the websites are on WordPress, which means you're still left with the major chunk on the other side of that line, which use other platforms. So I guess, and one of the questions that murmuration people were asked is, are you developing the plugins for other platforms, which is, I think, what they are working on. So the marketing is really not going to be a problem, because it's not a question of what organizations want. It's a question of what, it's a symbiotic relationship between the audience needs to know who's doing what and take a call on which events to sign into and participate and attend. And the reason why we are not able to do that in an effective way is because you don't get to know about an event unless you're subscribed to their mailing list and their newsletter and, that sort of a thing. It's also more a need than a want, because there is a need to be able to plug in. And I'm saying this need from the perspective of an a past event manager who was always looking for, curated information and platforms where I could access what are the events happening this month, what are the events happening this week. And sometimes, I would just go and hang out in the foyer of those events to network and connect and just pick up visiting cards, if nothing else, to pick up visiting cards. Because, everybody knows that at a major event, you don't make connections. The connections come after the event, when you actually reach out one-on-one to each of the people there. So I mean, from what I can see unfolding, I think we are pretty much on track. What we would need to do is break up. I mean, I've seen your email and looked at it in fairly good detail. What we would probably need to do is build, take one of those aspects and build a focus on. I think the marketing is going to be the last thing we need to do, but first we need to have the space. You have a website planned, so at least there's a landing page there, and there's somewhere that people can come to go to find out and sign up and submit the events. But then if you have a plugin, because even for the plugin people, there needs to be a place where people can go, where they can get all their FAQs answered and and navigate through how they can populate the calendar, how the app would, the plugin would work and all that. So I guess we need to do on the tech side, think a couple of things parallel. And once that's in place, I guess the marketing is just, if each one of us just steps up and sends it out to all those newsletters we've subscribed to, which keep sending us updates on their events, we would start with, I'm sure we would get 100 events plugged in and logged in, no questions asked. I don't see it difficult. I mean, look, with a limited group, we got we had 76, and we had to move into 5 sessions for the press conference, and then take it to the next week and move it forward. And what was the database that we're working on? And the other thing is that these kind of things actually grow algebraically. They actually exponentially just grow, because everybody says, where did you find me? I found it on the Chrysalis calendar, and it just grows. It just grows. So I have no doubt about it. There's no way that we can move back now, having moved forward on this. And I don't see why we shouldn't. And I think the first milestone we should look at achieving is following the 100 monkey pattern, is getting 100 events plugged into the calendar. And I can tell you, that's not going to be tough to do. God, I'm subscribed to some 80 newsletters. If I just plug them all in, you just need 20 more. And because, we are looking at we're looking at transformation from an environmental perspective, from a spiritual humanity perspective. So it's easy going here on. Yeah. So that's my bit.
Love it, Malini. You are a force of nature. And, literally, I'm just going to say it. Between you and Kate, who just did another heart symbol on the screen. Thank you, Kate, sister. Between the two of you, you could round up everyone we need for those first 100 monkeys, right? For the first 100 events. And so let me, I've got a lot to say, but just jump in. I'm going to prioritize you. Anyone else who wants to share, just jump in and share, okay? But so we've been talking about the automation piece, right? With murmurations, et cetera, et cetera. The first piece, I think, is actually upstream of that, is even simpler. And that is to just create the basic bare bones of a calendar and its presentation on the homepage. You come to the homepage, you see the calendar, and you see whatever events are on the calendar. Oh, you want to upload events? Register. There's a button to register, to sign up. Once you're registered, and it's a pretty low bar. Hey, if you're all about global transformation, you're in. Come in. And of course, we can always weed out the people who got in by mistake or whatever. That's never a problem. And once you're registered, create your own calendar, your calendar. And as I wrote about in the email, there's 2 ingredients to that. The first one is the most important, for you to be able to create and upload your events that you're hosting. So you got your calendar. I kind of think of the metaphor, and I see Kate has her hand up, so I'll call on you in a second, Kate, sister. I just wanted to mention, for those of us who weren't born yesterday, we remember the days of overhead transparency projectors, and you could put one transparency on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, and project a whole bunch of things overlaid. So imagine all these individual calendars, Kate's calendar, Jamin's calendar, Simon's calendar, Alan's calendar, Malini's calendar, et cetera, all overlaid. So each of us has our own calendar of the events that we're hosting. The Chrysalis calendar simply becomes all these transparencies stacked on top of each other, overlaid on top of each other. If they want to overlap, let them overlap. If anyone needs a space to hold an event, right here. And it can be, in the worst case, in a breakout room, right? Because this room is getting very busy. But anyway, let me pass the talking feather to Kate. Let me welcome Vincent, who just joined. Feel free to say hello, Vincent. We are recording and we can pause anytime. Meanwhile, Kate, sister, great to see you. And I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Well, maybe not seeing me, but hello all. Yeah, I got my goofy thing that I'm cleaning my porch. So I guess you basically said when Melanie was talking, I thought, yes, it's so there is so many in any given hour. There's probably 10 topics that are populated. Now it's almost that we're at the point of overwhelm of conversation. And so I love the idea of a calendar. And I think most people would want to, you know, I mean, because now it's about how do I attract the right people and how do I get the people. And so this calendar, but basically you said what I wanted to say, brother, of how there would be so much overlap and you know, because there are just, you know, like the whole Pachamama Alliance, that kind of thing, environment from just so many different angles I see populating, really. And I don't know, we're just off the heels last night, you know, David Attenborough, I feel is such a powerful voice that who doesn't, you know, listen, can't hear his wisdom. And anyway, I'm probably showing you things upside down. Yeah, we just off of another special that he had last night. So I always feel that, you know, if hearts have been, you know, if anybody could hear, Lord, we need to just stop manufacturing like now. No, we don't need to make another dress for at least a week. And this whole, the Suez Canal, just all the transportation, and you put all of this together, it seems like the awareness that we must do something, you know, is talking about it is great, but you saw the fertility. Here I go to LA, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I'm in with these food healers. I want to see Sister Ivy. I'm going to go there. I have a month. I have nothing but time that I can give. And then, you know, you realize that I kind of rather, oh, I'm sorry, I probably had the feather too long. Anyway, the Zoom is almost a better approach to gather, because here we are in suburbs, that there's more people in these suburbs that are in my state. Just navigating to get anywhere is a kind of insanity. And then, of course, you know, I don't think about, oh, you got to have a food handler's license. Well, I got one of those back in South Dakota, but that doesn't help you here. And just these details that I didn't think about when I want to be in service. So I think this conversation of how we take, you know, put the rubber to the road in a good way, in a practical way, is also part of the conversation. So that's all I wanted to say was, yeah, we can populate 100 today. Loving you all, passing the talking feather.
You know, Jamin, I'd like to address the issue of overlays and overlap of events. As I see it, or, you know, I've been seeing it over the years, there was a time when nobody was doing events on Earth Day, nobody was doing events on Water Day, and most of the events are around a specific UN day or a specific cosmological event, either it's the solstice or the equinox, or it's the new moon or the full moon. But what does happen is, and this is a natural, you know, way things evolve, is that it has reached the height of the crest. There's a crescendo where everybody wants to do everything at the same time on the same day. What will organically happen is when the audience starts getting divided and the audience starts thinning out, because it's the question of who's going to go where. And let's face it, the shiny object syndrome of the shiny object popular presenters is also going to die out, because because I'm beginning to see that most of the presenters don't have anything new to say. So if you've heard them on 2 events, you've heard everything that they have to say for their entire life. You know, so that's going to naturally sift itself out and sort itself out. So as I can see it into the future, we may have 3 or 4 months of overlap, and then people are going to say, oh, there's a competition for time and eyeballs and space on this day at this time. This seems to be free. Let me shift my event. And that's what will happen. It'll take time, but that's the natural way the curve is going, going to go. So no problem, let's just have it. My only concern is that if they create their own calendar, which on the Chrysalis Calendar website space or whatever we decide, whatever gets built, is that then it's, is it going to be a link to, these are again details, a link to their website, or is it going to be a link to a page on the Chrysalis Calendar's website? Those are nitty-gritty, but the question is, we must try to keep them moving away from that environment as less as possible. So it should be, if on that front page, even if it's a scroll down, I know Google Calendar just has +5 more or +10 more. Instead of doing it that way, if on that one date, everything in terms of chronology is a scroll up and a scroll down, people should be able to check and figure out where they want to go. And of course, they can put in links, which could either go to their event or whatever. Those are very small aspects of the detailing and the design and the planning of what it's going to look like at the front end. That's, my expertise has always been user interface. What does it look like to the user? And the front end, how easy, simple, clean, and understandable is it going to be at the front end of it? So timelines, you know me, Jamin. Even though we may not follow it, but we need to keep a timeline because amorphous structures don't go anywhere.
I really like the scroll down idea that she just mentioned. And for me, it's exactly the opposite. I'm interface challenged. And so when she said scroll down, that felt extremely pleasant to me. So I wanted to mention that.
I have one observation and one question. I'm really hoping what happens as this starts to progress, in response to your comment, Malini, about repetitive meetings and people have only got so much to say. That's when they're all theoretical. I'm hoping that this starts to turn increasingly into about what people are actually doing, what they've achieved, what they did last week, what they're going to do next week. So there'll be an excitement and momentum about coming to meetings. And one of the things I'm really excited about this whole prospect is the prospect of cross-pollination. People learning from others what worked, people learning what didn't work, not reinventing the wheel, not going through all the whole process of discovering for themselves when something is flawed. They'll be able to reach out to the world and say, look, we're thinking about this. And somebody can come along and say, well, great idea, we tried it, but at the very least, consider this potential pothole. That could be really, really helpful. So we'll accelerate positivities. That's my hope. My question is, Jamin knows, I've been coming to these meetings for a while, quite a lot of talk about acronyms, words that are made up of initials, which only work, of course, in the particular language. In English, like this, transforming healing. I'm wondering, for those of you who are bilingual or involved in other countries other than English-speaking countries, is Chrysalis a really strong brand globally? I think that's another major strength of it. And people can come up with their own acronyms within their own domestic areas if they feel the need. But am I right in thinking that Chrysalis is a really strong global brand?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
Definitely.
That's another major, major strength.
That's because every woman understands the concept of Chrysalis. I don't think there is a single woman on this planet who would not appreciate what a chrysalis is.
Right. Well, Jamin, he was quite keen on saving, healing, and intentionally transforming shit. And I think most mothers understand what that is.
But it's more than that. If we think about the work of Eric Carle, who does art and book for children, and he has the Very Hungry Caterpillar, that attracts women and men and boys and girls and everything. It's a very holistic concept. Yes.
So holistic, intergenerational.
Yes.
It's timeless. It's timeless because it's nature's design. It's absolutely nature's design.
Well, it's timeless, and it's also of its time. Now is the time to enter the chrysalis.
For it, yes.
Because it's a transformative thing.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going through. We don't know what's going to come out the other end, but we are in a deep transformation right now.
Well, I would say to that, it's for us to decide, isn't it, what comes out the other end? That's what this is all about.
No, it's not for us to decide. It's
exactly.
It to decide, it will decide for itself.
I agree.
And whatever comes out will be the right thing in the right way for the right reasons.
I agree. So many of us may perish in the process, but we have to do the work. There is no other option.
Okay.
Talking about languages, Simon, I'd like here to throw in a seed into this soil, and that is, I think the time has come for us to create a visual lexicon of our own. You know, the thumbs up was created by Facebook, likes. And it's now a universal lexicon. It's like what we find in the airports. Everybody understands it. It transcends language. And I think the time is now right for us to, in this emergence, to, I'm sure, I believe we don't do anything. Spirit just uses us as the pen and the paper and the pencil. And if we get out of the way and let Spirit do the drawing for us, I'm sure the right lexicon will emerge and the right icons will emerge. I mean, who develops icons? All those icons are developed as part of a visual lexicon. So I'm sure even for the calendar, we could develop a lexicon. Of course, if an icon already exists, then we just use that. And if not, because then you transcend cultural sensibilities and you transcend language needs. You know, if someone sees that calendar and I'd like to attend, and if for a simple thing, is it a paid event? Is it a free event? You could just have icons for it. Is it a participatory event or is it just talk? I mean, if this is going to emerge, I don't think we could ever get the lexicon ready at this stage, and we just need to add to it. What we need to look at is conceptually that yes, we will develop a visual lexicon of icons, and there's enough of talent, and I'm sure there are artists, and Karen is here. There's so many people who can just plug in, and we could just say, hey, we like this as the image icon for this feature in the calendar. And of course, it will be something new that you would have to have in, like you have on maps and stuff like that, a glossary right up in front saying what each means. But over a period of time, it's like the use of a cell phone. Now, most of us know how to navigate through those visual icons. So, but that's something we should develop that's unique, that's us. And when people copy us, I guess that's the best compliment one could ever get for having done the nice thing. People say, oh, they copied your idea. And I say, forget the bloody IPR. We have to move out of that IPR mentality. And I keep telling people, you want to copy my meditation? Go ahead, just take it off. As long as more and more people go into the heart, good for you. And if you're copying me word to word, then I think that's the best compliment you've paid me without telling me that you like my work good enough to have to copy it. It's all about feminine energy, which thinks and moves differently than other energies.
I want to share, Malini, with you an experience I had. I made a huge collage. It was a mandala. It was made out of candy wrapping paper. And I gave it to my father as a gift. It was really, really huge. It took 60 hours of work, actually cutting and gluing the papers. And then I put on Pinterest a photograph of it. And sometime later, I found the exact photograph modified in different colors and put under the name of somebody else as if it was their work. And at the beginning, I was like, this looks so like mine. And then I looked at it again, and for a moment, there was huge confusion in my being. And I only was able to release the confusion when it clicked on me that that was a compliment. They even took the trouble of changing the color, but it was my work. And the confusion only lasted for as long as I didn't click that was a compliment. Yeah.
You know, the problem comes in when you start thinking this is my work. And at the end of the day, there's nothing that is yours, because where did that original idea come from anyway? If you go back, it's all source.
We're artists are channelers of the messages that are there to be given further. Yeah.
Not only artists, Karen, everybody's a channeler.
Everybody,
everybody is a channeler.
Everybody, yes, everybody. But so artists are not making that out of nowhere.
Nowhere, right.
They're channeling it from
I get that.
all their experiences. Yes.
So does that mean this transformation will be the end of intellectual copyright and patents?
No.
You still feel they've got a place?
I'm dead against copyrights and patents. I've spent most of my life savings. I have about 10 copyrights and patents to my name. And it means bloody shit and bloody hell. No earthly use, because I don't plan to. It was just an ego trip to say, oh, this is mine, I did it. Right. But so be it. That's all there is to it. And we have to move out of this sense of ownership. Look, let's face it, Simon, we don't own anything. We only have right of usership. We have right of usership of an idea, a thought, of the things that we have in our life. And when we go, we don't even take the neat suit with us when we go.
Right. I mean, this is why Jamin knows I'm particularly interested in our monetary system. And our problem, one of the major downsides with a toxic monetary system is there's a conflict between money as a medium of exchange and a store of value. And if you've got more than you need and you hoard, you're hoarding money, which is not then available to flow. And it's only our monetary system that allows people to say this is mine, to privatize and to own huge tracts of land and stupid things like that. What's important is access over ownership. We all need access to what we need freely, ideally. You know, we're the only species on the planet that pays to be here. It's insane. And it's a completely artificial construct, isn't it?
I guess that's something that's more happening in the West. And unfortunately, in the East, we see that as the perfect model of development and want to copy it. But the fact remains that this was not how it was even in the West. Values were very different. And there is a time cycle in which these things happen in post-industrial revolution and industrial age. And then we have the internet age, which sort of kind of leveled the playing field. But then those guys also got educated in the old economic order. But there are communities, there are cultures across the world where money has no value. You know, an elder once told me, even the richest of men need 4 shoulders to carry their body to the grave. So having the money is going to, and if nobody likes you when you had all that money and nobody is willing to lend their shoulder, you're going to just rot where you are. So we may as well wake up. And those of us who have woken up and seen the light, can just send the energy and hope the others will wake up and see the light. That's all we can do. You know, we only have right over action. We do not have right over the consequences of those actions. That's not up to us. That's up to spirit to decide what's going to work and what's not going to work in perfect timing with the larger design, of which we have no idea. We're too myopic to even envisage that the scale of that larger design.
One of my favorite clips of YouTube, it's an indigenous Aboriginal Australian who's saying in their language they have no such word as please or thank you, because it's just assumed. You know, you don't have to say please and thank you. People just do things for each other.
Yes. So Jamin, back to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Sister Kate has her hand up, and then I'd love to address some of these points. What a great conversation. Kate, sister, go for it.
Got to put my tools down. And I have to express that I think I'm among some of the most beautiful people who have transcended ego. And I just so adore what I've been hearing of this relinquishing of ownership. You know, I guess I'm just a big kid, but I always wondered who was the first man that declared, I own this? And I don't know, that question just sits with me, this whole land ownership. We're just really caretakers, and how Dr. Rao's work takes us to that place of homo ahimsa, that we are no longer top predator species. We are caretaker species. And when I hear the personalities transcend, you know, a woman with 10 copyrights who we know, I mean, she's just like my favorite dynamo in the world. And it says, take my meditations, use them. I just feel like all of the voices I've heard today to me just express, I want to thank you for jumping off that big ledge that takes us to freedom. And honored to be in circle with you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Oh my goodness. You know, as we were talking here, I first want to show some icons on the screen real quick, and then I want to address the calendaring questions that Malini brought up, because that's absolutely fundamental.
Do you mind if I just jump in very swiftly?
Yeah, please.
I was thinking about the conversation. My own website, Just Cooperate, that I've been working on, I actually wrote a section on the commons. It's just the first paragraph. I put, the commons may best be summed up as access ownership with collective responsibility. Go back far enough and everything was the commons: the air, the water, the land, nature's abundance shared among indigenous tribes, nurtured with future generations in mind. At some point, however, someone said, this land is mine and mine alone, followed swiftly by, this land is mine, you work for me. Arguably, it's been downhill ever since.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's only when we see that as an innovation that we can finally say that innovation is now obsolete. But we've been relating to it not as an innovation, but as something that God said, that this man owns this land and these animals and has dominion. And I have my wife, or my women, some religions actually support one man having multiple women who, of course, can only belong to that man. Ugh, yucky. Anyway, let me share some icons that I just was inspired to draw while we're talking about them. So let's say we're having different conversations on different topics. So like, take this first icon in the upper left here. I'll just highlight with yellow for the moment. This one right here. What does that convey? Design. It's a protractor, a ruler, a pencil. It's like, let's get together and design something. This one here is, let's get together and let's do something that seems to convey with plants out in nature, something like that. This one says, let's talk about something. This one says, let's meditate and pray together, right? See, the eyes are kind of closed. It's more like a meditation thing. This one says, let's get together and write something up. Let's write up some text. This one says, let's get together and create some art, some visual art. This one says, let's get together and create some music. This list says, let's get together and build something, right? And on and on and on. Anyway, I just wanted to, I just drew those up just in the last few minutes while we were talking about icons. Thank you, Sister Kate.
You don't throw those things away, right?
No.
Okay, you keep them. Thank you.
And this is also on this recording, which will be on my YouTube channel. But now
it's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. We're just bouncing around ideas. Yeah. And now let me talk about the calendaring thing, because this is really fundamental. Okay. Malini, you talked about, oh, but you know, are people going to, you know, point to their calendar over here, over there, somewhere else, and we essentially get all fragmented. No, the idea is, if I log in as a user, I'm a registered user, I log in on Jamin Shively, you know, and I log, okay, great. When I talk about my calendar, it's just my events. But think of it as my transparency that gets overlaid. When you overlay them all, and then there's one single view. And I love your idea of scroll, right? Now, for those people who say, wait a second, there's 100 events happening, all starting at 8 a.m. and I'm getting confused, right? Then what they can do is say, you know what, I'm going to do a search and filter it down. Only show me those events that have to do with solar radiation management or permaculture or children, per Jane's beautiful image right there, or education or growing food or feeding people or whatever. Anyway, so that's search. But it's one Chrysalis calendar that you can then filter through search. Or if you don't want to filter it at all, just scroll. You can scroll away to glory and just see everything if you want. And that's where these icons really help. And I wrote about this in the email as well. Think about it when you go to some, you know, natural foods grocery store and you pick up some bag of cereal or something. You might see a V for vegan. You might see GMO with a line through it saying non-GMO, right? You might see gluten-free. You might see fair trade. But they each have a little image now that would, just with a glance, you can just boop, you do a quick scan. Oh, okay, I got it. Another thing is to add your own image, right? So if it was a talk about the community cafe, look at Rebecca BJ's image there. That's me in the picture in the middle there with community cafe. Imagine you got a picture. That kind of says it all. It's about, hey, let's create these places where we feed people. Whatever image, could be artwork like what Marco has of the planets, could be a drawing, could be a photograph, whatever, right? Could be a composite. So between icons, images, a catchy title, right? And then, you know, people can then scan very efficiently, right? So that's what I wanted to say about the calendaring. So the first step, as I see it, is have a single calendar where you can scroll, even if there's things that are overlapping, just scroll, and let individual users register, sign up, and then upload and update, right? That's the first feature. The thing about automatically syncing and all that through murmurations and these other tools, that can come a little later. It could be a few days later. I'd love to get this all done this week, all right, or next week. So let's get it done. But anyway, I think we're off to a really good start. I want to welcome Jane and Eric, who just joined. Eric's going to be leading us on a 2-hour journey through the glass beads game, starting in 11 minutes. Eric, woo! So good to see you. Joining us from Galicia, Spain.
There is a possibility that a lot of people are going to show up for this game. I have advertised it fairly widely in the hope of creating some cross-pollination sort of thing between groups. So listen, maybe nobody will turn up, but there is a possibility that lots of people will turn up. We will see. We will see.
All right, beautiful. Well, I think some people are already turning up, and I'm super excited. Since it's going to be quite an intensive, why don't we give ourselves a little break?
That's a really good idea. That's a really good idea. 10-minute break before we start is a really
10-minute break.
idea.
Yep. So 10-minute break. Yeah. I'm gonna pause recording, or actually stop recording. Thank you all so much for participating and watching on this beautiful conversation about Chrysalis Calendar, and can't wait to see you on the next meeting.
Could you possibly make me host, Jamin, just in case I forget?